everyone. It's episode 37 of Bruins Tape to Tape. I welcome you all in. We are recording on Monday, May 13th. Unfortunately, after the Bruins suffer another loss at the hands of the Florida Panthers, we are going to talk about the outcomes of the two games since our last episode. And I'm sure, as most of you are well aware, there are some other controversial topics that have come out of these games that are not directly hockey related to the play on ice. But before we get going and we vent our rage on the league and league officials, I want to welcome in my ever optimistic and positive thinking co-host, Karoline. Welcome in, Karoline. I'm going to need all the positivity you can bring tonight.
Maria, I don't know how positive I'm going to be tonight, and I want us to get a few things out of the way, and I'm gonna take a page from the Bob Beers playbook, as he did last night. If you were listening to the play-by-play on 98.5, I'm going to literally quote the rule book. The applicable standards for potential interference on the goalkeeper challenge, Rule 38.11. The standard for overturning the call in the event of a goal call on the ice is that the NHL Situation Room, aka Toronto, after reviewing any and all replays and consulting with the on-ice officials, determines that the goal should have been disallowed due to interference on the goalkeeper, as described in rules 69.1, 69.3, and 69.4. Those rules state, if a defending player has been pushed, shoved, or fouled by an attacking player so as to cause the defending player to come into contact with his own goalkeeper, such contact shall be deemed contact initiated by the attacking player for the purposes of this rule, and if necessary, a penalty assessed to the attacking player, and if a goal is scored, it would be disallowed. Now, per Sophia from Nesson, our favorite female analyst, one of our favorite analysts, period, shared today on Twitter that the league's official explanation, if you will, the reason why it was considered or not considered goaltender interference had to do with the fact that the play did not prevent the goaltender, Jeremy Swayman, from playing his position. However, I will point out, and as any person who has an iota of a brain cell, who can read the English language and read the publicly available NHL rulebook, the focus of goaltender interference is not on whether or not the goaltender can perform his duties in
Correct.
his position, but rather if a defending player, in this case Charlie Coyle, was pushed into Jeremy Swayman by Sam Bennet. And I think it is not a matter of opinion. I think it is a plain matter of fact for anybody who saw it happen, saw the multitude of replays, both during the game, after the game, and all day today, that without a doubt, Sam Bennet cross-checked Charlie Coyle into the area where Jeremy Swayman stood. And therefore, by the definition as set by the National Hockey League, that if the defending player, Charlie Coyle, has been pushed, shoved, or fouled, cross-checked, by an attacking player, Sam Bennet, so as to cause Charlie Coyle, the defending player, to come in contact with his own goalkeeper, Jeremy Swayman, such contact shall be deemed contact initiated by the attacking player, Sam Bennet, for the purposes of this rule. It was,
and we could argue that POS shouldn't have even been in that game. And we'll get
correct
to that infraction,
yes.
because this has been a perfect shit sandwich created by the National Hockey League, by the executives, by the morons who sit in the situation room in Toronto, who send explanations such as this. Now, mind you, you have now read the rules, okay?
Yes.
That is a clear Rule 69. Rule 69.3 expands upon that. This came from Scouting the Refs. If an attacking player initiates contact with a goalkeeper, incidental or otherwise, while the goalkeeper is in his goal crease, and a goal is scored, the goal will be disallowed. There's no mention anywhere in there about a goalie's ability to make the save or not make the save. Yet, this is what bullshit comes out of the mouths of the people who are making these reviews and decisions. Video reviews supported the referee's call on the ice that the shove by Florida's Sam Bennet on Charlie Coyle and the subsequent contact with Jeremy Swayman, now this is all bolded, did not prevent Swayman from playing his position in the crease prior to Bennett's goal. Is that anywhere in these fucking rules?
No. And if I recall during the game, the initial explanation that kind of came out was focused around the degree to which Bennet pushed Coyle, that there was questions around, well, I guess he didn't push him that hard. But you have to read the actual rules, folks. And these rules, while there are a number of rules that are in this book that are, a little bit vague and left up to the discretion of the officials. Certainly there are instances.
This is black and white.
This one is black and white, 100% was there pushing. Now, we want to be really clear here too, that we recognize that the reason why the Bruins are down in this series, that's 3-1 in favor of Florida, is not explicitly because of the circus, because these referees are straight up clowns, that is happening on the ice. At the end of the day, I don't know why Charlie Coyle had his back to Sam Bennet. You play the man, not the puck. You look at your man, not the puck, right? So should Charlie Coyle have gotten pushed in the back? No, because if he was doing his job, he would have been looking at Sam Bennett. And I'm not saying that he would
boxing him out.
Or anything like
no,
that.
The reality is no one picked up Bennett. Nobody fucking boxed him out. That's been the tale of a lot of the downfall when the Bruins have been losing these playoff games. So we want to be very, very clear that we are not stating that the officials are costing Bruins the games. All right, people? I said that very clearly, very articulately. Yes. However, the referees should not be part of the game. They should not be making decisions that impact the integrity of the game. And that is what has been occurring here. And you know what, NHL? You started this shitstorm. You created this shitstorm when after game 2, and there were numerous game misconducts, and you issued a warning, allegedly to both teams, about the fact that the games were going to be scrutinized. What you should have said, if you had the balls to say it, was that you were only going to be scrutinizing one team, and that would be the Boston Bruins. So at least have the guts and the balls to say that.
Exactly. The comment that was issued, or the tweet that was issued, first and foremost, after the series had already started, was completely idiotic. Because no other series, as far as I can tell, granted, I'm not paying super close attention to what happens out west because it is well past my bedtime, but I've not heard any other series be given such a blatant quote unquote warning. And for me, when I think about the integrity of the game, and I think about the role that referees and officials are supposed to serve, it should be integrity of the game and player safety equal, right? Both things in my mind are equally important. And the referees in this series have failed on both counts, because a decision by a referee, whether it is right or wrong, right? We've talked about plenty of times, and we have recognized that to be an on-ice official in an NHL hockey game is difficult. I understand that, right? Like, I can't actually ever truly understand how hard it is, but I can understand that the game moves fast. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot going on. I get it. Things can get missed. I understand that. However, no call or non-call should have a significant impact on the outcome of the game, especially when they are wrong for either not calling or calling incorrectly something on the ice. That is what destroys the integrity of the game that we see on the ice, and can really put players at significant risk when it comes to their safety. You go back a game, and the quite literal sucker punch that Brad Marchand received from Sam Bennet, and I can understand how in that moment on the ice when it happened, because we've all seen that reverse angle, right? We kind of knew from the original angle kind of what was going on, that there was some kind of hit to the head.
There were slow motions of it being circulated
You could tell
on
it was a hit to the
Saturday. On
Right.
Saturday.
And then now we are seeing the reverse image, where it is not just a hit to the head, but a clear sucker punch to the
Sucker
head.
punch.
So I can understand how in the moment, if you're a referee and you're obviously not on that reverse side because it was right in front of the bench, I can understand how you don't see what happened. It was very quick. I get that. However, this is where I look at the league and I say, it's not just the on-ice officials who are putting the integrity and the safety of players at risk. It is now the league, because the Department of Player Safety is supposed to review every single game, every single hit, every single play, to ensure after the fact, in slow-mo if needed, if a violation occurred. But we have seen how Boston Bruins players have gotten the short end of the stick, quite literally, multiple times when it comes to potentially severe head injuries. We this season alone, we can go back to November and see the behavior of Jacob Trouba swinging his stick like a baseball bat to Freddie.
He's already thrown one flying elbow.
Oh, I know.
That hasn't been disciplined. So,
right.
Yep.
And Sam Bennet has the exact same kind of reputation. And the fact that there is a single person out there who can look at this play and say, that's just a hockey play. Okay, well, then
Paul Maurice can. Paul Maurice did. Just a hockey play.
So
just a hockey play.
The next time you go walking down the street and someone just clocks you in the face, well, that's just foot traffic. That's what it's
Yep.
like to be walking around in the city.
Incidental contact.
No,
Like
when there's a
what
lot of people and someone bumps your arm while you're holding your coffee and it's rush hour, that's incidental contact. But if you're standing there waiting for the subway and someone walks up and punches you in the face, that is not incidental contact. That is a violation of rules.
Billy Jaffe put it as clearly and as concisely as anybody could, and I have been saying this for a couple of years now. And he said it on their latest Morning Brew episode. If the roles were reversed and Brad Marchand had done that to Sam Bennet, Brad Marchand would have likely been suspended, not just for one game, folks, but likely the remainder of this series.
Yeah.
So you know what, Department of Play and Safety? Take your rulings, take your reviews, take your cameras, and shove them up your ass, because you don't care about safety of players. You only care depending on who the player is and what color sweater they're wearing. And I have a perfect example of that now, because in the game last night between the Edmonton Oilers and the Vancouver Canucks, Carson Soucy cross-checked Connor McDavid, and he's already been suspended for a game.
Yeah.
Now, let me get this straight. That game wasn't played until at least 10 o'clock. Here we are at 6:35 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and a ruling has already been issued. So you know what? F off, all of you. All of you. F off.
Yeah. I think essentially the reason why Boston Bruins Nation is so particularly riled up about this is the fact that we already have a steep enough hill to climb. And I never want to be that fan. And I like to think that I've never been that fan who just, oh, the league hates us. Oh, it's nobody likes us, right? But damn, if this is not the first time that I'm like, what the hell? Because why all of a sudden is Florida this darling angel team? We have seen the bullshit that they have been pulling all year, all season.
We saw it in last year's playoffs.
Right.
Listen, they're a good team, okay? They have some elite talent. They likely have a lot more elite talent than we do on our roster. But they have been playing like this. We saw this same shit in the playoffs last year. And they are becoming masterful at the flopping and snapping their heads back. And these buffoons who are on ice officials fall for it every single time. You're a bunch of goddamn circus clowns.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to be clear about is I'm no crazy conspiracy theorist. I don't think that Gary Bettman has sent out a memo to the officials and said, oh, you must never penalize Florida, right? Because the officials change every single game. Like, that's by design. However, it doesn't mean that there isn't some kind of tacit messaging, right? I mean, think about it. And this is where I will put on my conspiracy theory hat for just a moment, if you'll indulge me. Think about the bigger picture when it comes to the NHL as a business and expansion into markets that are not traditionally hockey markets, right? We've all seen how empty those seats are in South Florida.
Yep.
So who doesn't love that scrappy underdog? What a great story. It's going to endear that. It's going to endear fans to this team that's just, we're going to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and we're just going to go up and we're going to beat the giant big bad Bruins who represents all of Boston sports, and everybody hates Boston for all of the winning that they've done over the last 20 years, right? They've built this narrative of, you should look at how far they went, how hard they work. We should all be supportive of this team that's just worked so damn hard to fight against all these big bad guys. Fuck the Florida Panthers. Yeah. I hate them so much because if you've been paying attention, if you've been a fan of this league for at least the last 10 years, you can see right through this ridiculous facade that Paul Maurice has established with this team. And yet Gary Bettman seems to think that the rest of us are buying into this idiotic storyline that he has created or promoted, when all he's doing is attracting fair weather fans who will come and go as they please, and they don't actually care about the game, and they will not invest in the game. They do not send their kids to play hockey. They do not support the growth of hockey. So what the hell is he doing?
He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't give a shit. And I'm almost even wondering if, this isn't playing right into their hands. Look at all the people. It's almost like the NFL, right? They are one big public relations machine. Even when something bad happens in the league, they take full advantage of it, because you know what? People are talking about the NFL. What have we been talking about for days here? For days.
Yep. Yeah. 100%.
Right? The only people that he's pissing off are those of us who have been long-standing fans of the game. Not just our own teams, but of the game itself. And you know what, Gary? You're sucking the life out of me. You are sucking the life and the passion out of me with this shit that you keep shoving down our proverbial throats.
Right. And when you have the game on, these national broadcasts with these characters, right? We all have the ones we love and the ones that we hate. But they bring in these personalities to either do the play-by-play, the color analysis in game, or the intermission, and they try to get a variety of personalities to attract as many people as possible, so that hopefully you'll be interested in hearing more from Biz or PK or Hank or whomever, right? Or Pang or whatever. But what then happens that I find disheartening is it's very easy to, at that level, take that hot take when there's nobody who's going to check what you're saying, right? So and I don't necessarily, this isn't necessarily a criticism of all of those personalities, all the ESPN personalities. I mean, whatever, that's a separate conversation. But for them to say the things that they've been saying, nobody's going to check them, because they are creating an entertainment program not for the regular diehard hockey fans like you and me and our listeners. They are creating a hockey entertainment program for the casual viewer, right? And it's much easier and much faster, because they have to do it in a short period of time, to say, oh, what a great controversy. Aren't they just a bunch of whiny folks or whatever? Because nobody wants to have that conversation about, wow, the league really screwed up there, right? That from an entertainment PR standpoint, that's a terrible message, and nobody wants to hear that, right? If you're an outsider who's just picking up watching some of these games, you want to hear the feel good stories and things like that. And I think, to kind of transition a little bit more, as we want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges the Bruins have had, the other major issue that I have with everything has been the fact that these guys are not going to say anything negative against the league because it doesn't fit with the entertainment story that they want to tell for new fans, fair weather fans, whomever. But the fact that there is quite literally a ban, essentially, it's not written, but it's a very well understood ban on any kind of criticism, public criticism or critique of Gary Bettman, the Department of Player Safety, and the way that they choose to run this league. And we've seen,
and the officials.
right?
So
and
that
the-
was
and by
that was a
extension, the
directive,
officials.
right? That was a
Right.
directive that was
Yes.
sent to all teams, and I know that I have been critical
Mhm.
of how Monty has or hasn't responded, as the
Right.
case may be, and to which I say, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit.
Right.
Say it. Say it. Say it. Say it, and take the fine.
Right. And so, kind of thinking about that sort of weird presser that happened today from Don Sweeney, I have conflicting feelings about Don Sweeney after all of these years. And he certainly is not unfamiliar with the role of being not the bad guy, but kind of being sent out there to be the one to say things that maybe he doesn't really want to say. Like, remember last year with that one kid that they signed and everyone was like, how could you sign him? And he's like, I don't know. I'm just here to tell you, right? He's kind of like the sacrificial lamb, so to speak. And so, that presser at first today, I thought, man, that made no sense. That was really weird. He didn't say a whole heck of a lot. But if you actually consider the fact that he is not allowed to publicly criticize any aspect of the league, what he really was saying in kind of a covert way, and I think he was hoping that some of the smarter, more probably legitimate news media folks in attendance could pick up on, is the fact that he essentially was saying, we can't say anything. Leave Monty alone because it's not his fault that he's not saying anything, because we've basically told him don't say anything. But we understand your frustration, but we can't say anything. And it kind of, to me, read as a little bit of a, we know, but we can't say anything kind of situation. And on the one hand, I'm a completely, like, as a Bruins fan and as an emotional human being, I'm 100% in agreement with you. Like, I want that grand gesture, right? Like, I want someone to come out there and just be like, you know what? Fuck you, Gary Bettman, and the league that you wrote in on. But I also understand that Gary and the society of very wealthy men that surround him, they're all on the same page. So while Cam might be
Oh,
pissed,
and let's not
John
forget
might be
that
pissed.
our very own owner, if
Mhm.
he still is not, has been a member of the board of governors of
That's
the league.
exactly my point. At the end of the day, why would the Jacobs family, who makes a tremendous amount of money off of the Boston Bruins in business with Gary Bettman in the NHL, why would they rock that boat? It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, guess what? We're talking about this, right? It's like the old expression, there's no such thing as bad PR, right? Because you're talking about it. Oh, what's up with the Boston Bruins? Let me find out. What's up with the Bruins? Who are these people? So people in the organization might be angry, probably from Cam down, but I can guarantee you from above Cam, they don't care.
He
They
doesn't
don't
give a
care.
shit.
And
No, he does not
they're
give
the
a
ones
shit.
saying, keep your
Yes.
mouth shut.
Yep.
Don't
He
put
doesn't
me
give
in
a
that
shit.
position. Do not put
No.
me in that position where I have to pay your fine, because I don't want to do it. And who knows? maybe it's even gotten to the point where he has said, and I kind of wouldn't be surprised if the Jacobs family said, I'm not paying your fine. Do not say this.
Yeah, I think it has become such a distraction to what I have always said is the greatest playoff series of any of the major sports. And this nonsense and this bullshit and this lack of integrity and lack of consistency is making me rethink my take and my thoughts on that. Because if this is the direction that you're leading us to and the path that you're leading us to, then you can have this game. You can have it because you're on the way to potentially ruining it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, because of I love this game so much, he's got me hook, line, and sinker. I'm sorry. I'm livid. I'm furious. But I have such a love of the game. I'm going to go back to him.
I'm sure we all will. I'm sure we all will. And you and I expressing our views, whether people agree with them or not, is likely not going to change the minds of the so-called people in power and people in positions of higher power who think they know what the hell they're doing. But at some point, you have to stand up and speak your mind and say what you feel and say what you believe, whether you sound like a homer, whether you sound like, a crazy, obsessed fan. I just can't tolerate the shit, and I'll keep saying this, the shit sandwich, excuse me, that the league has been feeding us all season long. And I'm not just referring to Boston Bruins games.
Yeah, 100%.
These are not issues that are exclusive to the Boston Bruins.
100%. 100%. I follow on Mastodon a great little community called Hockey Night on Mastodon, and it's primarily a community of Canadian fans following the Canadian teams, and I've seen plenty of other memes. We've got a friend of the pod, Jesse, who keeps us informed of a lot of the goings on when it comes to Twitter and memes and things
around the league.
Especially things happening out west, because this guy doesn't sleep apparently.
I don't think he sleeps.
But I've seen fantastic evidence of, I don't remember which game it was, but it's a post about how it was two GIFs side by side of not interference. It was quite literally the same play done by the two teams, and it's pervasive everywhere. We had our special guest Anna back in the fall talking about seeing the things that she saw as a Blue Jackets and a Red Wings fan. And I will say, and this is going to be the last thing I want to say about it, because then I'm getting into indigestion and my drink is already gone, Maria. I hesitated to go on social media last night because I was like, it's just going to get inundated.
You were wise not to.
I was just going to be inundated, even if it was, in our favor. I'm like, I just don't want to see that clip again. I just don't want to see it. But I did go briefly on, and it was a nice feeling to see the number of fans who commented. I don't even remember, which account it was. It was not a Bruins account. It was just a hockey account. The number of people who wrote in the comments, I'm an XYZ fan, and that was wrong. I'm a Rangers fan, and that was outrageous. I'm, a Jets fan, and there's no way that should have counted, right? And so at least in this outrage, I feel vindicated and not like I'm just being a homer, because I don't want to be that kind of fan. I just don't want to be that kind of fan who just blames everyone else and doesn't look at
Nor
the
do I,
shortcomings of the team.
but
We
in
got
circumstance,
shortcomings.
we have shortcomings. Yes, we do. And I think we made that clear that we are not saying that the Bruins find themselves on the verge of what is in essence their game 7 tomorrow night against the Florida Panthers. It's win or pack your bags for the summer.
Right.
But when you see egregious, and the goaltender interference call, the lack of a call on Sam Bennet and supplemental discipline, those are as egregious as you can get. And they've happened simultaneously in the same series at virtually the same times. And you have to say to yourself, have I gone crazy here? And then when I read things from people that I respect, like Emily Kaplan, who puts out a tweet today that says she talked to several people in the league about the Sam Bennett, Brad Marchand play. The NHL also didn't see the reverse angle until Sunday.
That's, to me, that you're not
bullshit. They're lying to you. They are lying to you.
They
are lying to you.
Camera angle plus more that we don't see.
This is what I can't take seriously. They are lying to everyone. And this is what this league does. So they make one mistake and they compound it by adding more mistakes and more mistakes and more mistakes.
They dig into this wrong take.
It's unfucking believable. You can't make this stuff up, folks.
Yeah. And
so then you have to push Don Sweeney to have a press conference at the airport before they're getting ready to go on the flight to Florida to try and take the heat off of his coach and off of his players from answering any more questions. And I have to applaud him for saying, go ask the people who are making the decisions.
Yes.
Because now it's time for them to step forward and answer these questions. Yes. So maybe he's laying the foundation for having those conversations at owners meetings or GM meetings later on to nip this in the bud and get this resolved one way or another.
And even if it doesn't happen at those places, because quite frankly, I don't imagine that kind of conversation ever happening at an owners meeting, and maybe at a GM meeting. But that was actually my favorite part of that conversation, because he was absolutely right to say that, because there are some very, very excellent investigative journalists who are also hockey analysts and hockey journalists. And nothing brings me more joy than thinking of Gary Bettman getting inundated by these questions nonstop from the press, because the press has every right to ask him these questions. And then he looks bad if he refuses to answer these questions, because what are you hiding? Right? So I hope that really encourages the media to really push back on this and to continue this conversation and actually talk about it. Like, I don't listen to a ton of league-wide podcasts, but I listen to some, and I'm very much so looking forward to, like 32 Thoughts this Friday, because they release only twice a week, to hear, an outsider's perspective. And that will kind of tell me if there is an appetite from the larger, league-wide coverage people if they're going to go after any of this. But I think at the end of the day, this whole situation just continues to exacerbate the frustrations that we already feel with this team. And
yes, because they're
struggling.
This team is struggling against the Florida Panthers, and just to prove the point that we're not being crybabies, right? I know that a lot of pundits out there are referring to the Boston Bruins fan base as a quote unquote bunch of fucking crybabies. No, when you see a wrong and you know it's wrong, you say it's wrong. It was wrong. What they did, what they mishandled Sam Bennet, that was wrong. He should have been suspended. That call last night on the Sam Bennet goal should have been reversed. That was wrong. The interference call on Jeremy Laco, the goaltender interference call, dead wrong on that one too. So I mean, how much more evidence, Your Honor, do I need before I rest my case?
Exactly. Yeah.
However, having said that, in fairness to the fact that there were games played, the Bruins lost those games, I will tell you my perspective on this is that we are seeing some of the chronic problems that you and I have discussed during pockets of the regular season that we saw rearing its ugly head.
And before this season, a lot of these issues have existed for at minimum 3 years. So we're talking pre-Monty issues that neither coaching style has been able to
has addressed or changed. Okay.
Right?
So you tell me, call me crazy, but I don't know how you're going to win many games when in a combination of 2 periods, you only have potential 8 shots on goal. All right. In some instances, you've gone through a period with only 1 or 2 shots on goal. That is not a recipe for success.
No.
Okay. When you're not winning a majority of faceoffs, and even when you win them and you can't control the puck, you can't make a smart play on the puck. Okay. You're whiffing on pucks.
Yeah.
I just don't see against a team that arguably has a more talented high-end roster than you do. How you're going to win a potential 7-game series.
Right.
And I can read you some of these numbers. Okay.
I love my numbers.
Okay. So again, the numbers that count the most are the goals. You've only scored 10. They have scored 16. They have taken a total of 146 shots to your 79.
Is that shot attempts or is that shots on goal?
Shots on goal.
Okay.
I'm counting shots on goal. Power play opportunities. They have had 21 and they have capitalized on 6 of them. You have had 11 and have only capitalized on 1. Okay. So an area of strength that you had was your penalty kill. And even now that is failing you because this team is not afraid. No, and they're not afraid to sling the puck around and shoot it.
Yeah.
Now, here's what really troubled me about Don Sweeney's press conference. Okay. And this to me was very telling about perhaps what is an institutional approach to a game strategy and mindset that needs to change.
Yeah.
Okay. When he was talked to by Ty Anderson and someone asked him a question about, the lack of shots on goal, and his response was basically, well, here we go. Both Montgomery and Sweeney have continued to say, now this is from Ty Anderson, covers the Bruins for 98.5, spends a lot of time
source.
in the weeds and the analytics, puts some really good content. He's a good source. And he was there today. He was there today. Okay. Bruins are not a volume shooting team. Sweeney referred to quality over quantity. Yet, when Pat Maroon was asked about some of this bullshit that was going on and, you know, why hasn't anybody fought anybody? And he says, look, it's not like, you know, we haven't tried. It's not like I haven't
has been
tried,
poking them,
you know?
and they're not responding.
Right. All right. But what he also said is that we've got to put more pucks on net. So is there a mixed message here? Is there a mixed message here? Because last I knew, right? Wasn't it the old adage, just throw the puck on net, especially in the playoffs?
Yeah. Honestly, when I hear that phrase, to me, first and foremost, it doesn't make sense right now because for whatever reason, you know, the quality over quantity would imply that you've got the good, high quality chances. And the thing is, the Bruins don't have that. So the alternative is you throw everything you've got in the kitchen sink because you don't have all the good chances because for whatever reason they can't get in or they can't get set up. And so I honestly, at this point, when I hear that, I roll my eyes because to me, that's just, unfortunately, Monty and Sweeney and whomever just kind of,
you know what?
They're covering their ass.
Then they got to go. They got to go because this is now, okay, right. You've had two different coaches now.
Yeah. And the problem persists.
Right. And the problems persist.
Yeah.
So you can say that you're not deep enough against this team. And perhaps you can also say, right, you goddamn lucky you got out of the Toronto series too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not above saying that. Sure. You're lucky you got out of that series.
100%.
Playing the way that you were playing.
I think
So where do we start? And again, this is not a postmortem. There's still an opportunity. As Pat Maroon said, right? We got to win a fucking hockey game. It's as simple as that.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. He's right.
Yeah. And I thought it was really interesting that he was their choice because I think maybe it's because he's the newest guy and, you know, whatever. But I think he was sent out there as like the representative of the tough guys to basically say like, look, I was chirping them. I was poking at them, but I'm not willing to just walk up to one of them and clock them in the face and get kicked out of the game. Like, that's not going to help anybody. So I did appreciate that at least he was saying that because I understood that's what he was saying. Ultimately, you know, and we will definitely have this conversation later. But in a recent Morning Brew, the conversation between Jaffe and Razor was the fact that it's not that we don't have depth scoring. We certainly do, right? But we should not be relying on that fourth line to do significant scoring. That's not their job. Ultimately, we have an elite goal scorer, and we don't have a good second to him, right? Brad Marchand used to be in that kind of role, but he's gotten older, and as nature decrees, you're going to be scoring a lot fewer goals. JD never really turned into that secondary prolific scorer, and ultimately the problem with Pasta is not that he can't perform or that he can't come in clutch, right? He had a fine game last game, right? He scored the first goal. He got it started. But when you only have one David Pastrnak, it's pretty easy to then be like white on rice on your star scoring person, right? Like, but if you got two, it's a lot harder to cover two of them, right? So they're gonna have to diversify their high-end scoring talent. It can't
Right,
just
because
be one guy, because
stop.
it's easy to
Yes,
cover one guy. It's hard
right.
to cover two.
Two or three. And
Right.
stop me if you've heard this before. How many times have we said they just can't fucking finish?
Right.
Now they had opportunities
It's been
to
like that since
extend the
2019.
lead. Right. They had opportunities to extend the lead in the game yesterday, and they couldn't fucking finish.
Right. And who knows what the deal is there? You know, is it the same problem that's persisted over the last 5 years, i.e., is it a roster issue, or is it every year a little bit different version of basically the yips, because they feel like we can't play to our identity, because if we get too physical, we're going to get thrown in the box. We can't play who we are because we already can't do these things, and they're getting
But
beaten down mentally and emotionally.
they're getting thrown in the box anyways. We've been
Right.
seeing this
Yeah.
all season long with, either it being one of the forwards or the defenseman caught out of position, and then they use the stick.
Right.
So they're getting interference calls. They're getting, a holding call. These are the chronic problems that we saw that they remedied for periods of time where they would play clean, solid 60 minutes of focused hockey, to now here we are back revisiting at likely the most inopportune time. It's the same.
It's the same story that we've been experiencing since 2019, because we had that was the year everybody knows. It's the year we don't talk about, because we had the goaltending, we had the talent, we had the defense, but we could not finish. And then we had, for a period of time, from 2020 through most of this year, the epitaph on the tombstone for the season was, "Oh, here lie the Boston Bruins. They could not clear," and now we're back to they can't finish. So I don't know what the answer is there. I'm disappointed, when it comes to the face-off situation, because it seemed like we were doing all right in that area, all things considered, right? Like, we need to temper our expectations and reset those expectations, because we are now back to being human and average when it comes to face-offs, because we do not have superheroes occupying those roles. But we were doing all right. And then it's, again, like, kind of coupled with that inability to finish and execute. It's not just being able to finish and execute on a power play or a 5-on-5. It's also at the face-off dot. It's at every turn. And we've talked over and over and over again about how this team, for a number of years, but very much so this year, have really struggled in the mental fortitude arena, because they are very, very much so influenced and impacted by the emotions of the game. And then you start to see it bleed into mental mistakes. You see the things that Charlie McAvoy has been going through. It's garnered national attention to the point where it's like, oh my God. So, thinking about what I might want to see for this next game, I mean,
so here's my take on this. In a lot of circumstances, players take on the personality of their coaches. And I find this coach to be much too passive. I haven't been shy about saying that. The only time that I have seen him, now he did react on the bench
Yeah.
He looked
Mhm.
like, and he looked like he was trying to
Tomato.
temper his responses to the questions post game.
Yeah.
But, and I know this is revisionist history,
Mm-hmm.
but you fired a coach who held his players accountable.
Yeah.
And he left and went to a team that, yes, maybe had a deeper roster, but that same year, he won a Stanley Cup.
Right.
Your coach had success,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no denying
Yeah.
historic success,
Mm-hmm.
and was upset in the first round.
Yeah.
We barely eked out of the first round this year.
Mm-hmm.
They faced more adversity this year than they had the prior
Mm-hmm.
year, and we all know to some degree why
Yeah.
that occurred.
Yep.
But somehow they stayed as one of the better teams in the league.
Somehow. I don't know.
At some point,
Yep.
you've got to look from the top all the way down.
Yeah. I mean,
Tonight is not the time to do that.
right. The last thing I'll say, because I know we're kind of running out of time, I've been kind of waiting for probably the last 2 years for that final shoe to drop when it comes to our modern golden era for the Boston Bruins. And every team experiences this, right? We have seen in real time the rise and fall of the Tampa Bay Lightning empire, right? We saw, I mean, this was kind of pre-modern day era, but we saw, with the Detroit Red Wings, and we've seen the rise and fall of the Penguins, right? It's a natural order of things. It's how it works.
It happens
right?
to every team. It's
Every
a
single
cyclical
team.
thing. Yep.
And it kind of makes me feel like I've been waiting for 2 years for this team to enter either in the retooling phase or the rebuild era. And I almost kind of wonder if they should have at some 2 years ago kind of just ripped the Band-Aid off, so to speak. Like because we've seen some teams not go into the bad era where they've kind of tried to stem the tide and make significant changes like that retool. And they've kind of come back from that. I feel like maybe Boston has waited a little too long and they're just trying to kind of ride this wave and push through, and they're just then missing the mark every year. Like there are good things that they've been able to accomplish every single year, but it's just it just kind of makes you think. And I don't want to come across as too modeling because the season's not over yet, but
No.
it just makes you think, right? Like when you're so close to the edge, when you're a game away potentially from your season being over, you can't help but just sit and think like, how did we get here? Why are we having these struggles? Where do these struggles come from? Why has it been like this for 5 years? I don't know. It's just those things that kind of make you think, and
I have my thoughts on that, but that will be a separate.
That'll be our postmortem, but
that'll be our postmortem. But for now, in closing, the way the Bruins can get us to all stop talking and thinking about such things is go win a fucking hockey game.
Yep. I mean, the best thing is we're a really great road team. So who knows? But
the odds are stacked against you.
Yep.
The odds are totally stacked against you, both likely on the ice and within the league offices. And yes, I'm saying that, and I don't care who takes issue with it.
Right.
So you know what? Go out with either your head held high or waving both middle fingers at the league.
Yep, exactly. So I just hope that they tomorrow play to their identity and they make lots of shots. And if the series ends tomorrow, that I hope it's a high quality loss and that they played their hearts out and they put in all that effort. Because that's all I want to see, because I have to remind myself I am still so glad at for everything that this team has accomplished thus far. We made it to the second round. We had a successful season. They were a top team. They did everything that we hoped that they would do ultimately. So, it's not the end until it's the end. But let's just hope that they play their game tomorrow night.
Go win a game, Bees. Just win a game.
So we will be back Wednesday, I'm thinking. Yes.
I'm thinking Wednesday, depending on the results, folks.
Yep. And hopefully we will be much more joyful when we speak again soon.
And in closing, I will let you do the honors.
Always. Forever and always. Go Bees.
Go Bruins.